Instagram no longer a photo app.
How testing affects concerts.
And Firefest coming back?
You're listening to The Biztape. Welcome to episode 41 of The Biztape, your all things music business and media podcast. I'm your host, Colin, with my co-host, Joe, and our special guest, Avery King, the director of publicity at Elicity PR. That's really fun to say.
I was about to say, that's a mouthful, is it not?
Yeah, I like it. It's like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. It's fun.
Oh, good. Starting strong. Got it.
Yeah.
Probably not a great name for the PR
No,
standpoint.
okay. Yeah, never mind. Never mind. Take that away. Yeah, thank you so much for being with us. We really do appreciate it and everything. So first off, I know personally I've had to learn, but what exactly is PR and what do you do on a day-to-day kind of thing? Because, we were joking before the show. It's like this weird black hole thing where people are like, PR, it's like outward. I don't know what it means. It's something.
Yeah. So basically my day-to-day changes every day. And for that, that's the entire part that I enjoy the most. But basically our entire team works with a roster of artists, and we're responsible for making sure that they get press, whether it's around an album release or their tours or whatever. Obviously, as the pandemic happened, things changed a bit in the fact that we weren't doing tour support press. We were trying to come up with any concept to keep people's face out there. Obviously, your major artists that everyone knows their names didn't struggle near as much during the pandemic as far as being able to make ends meet. But when it came to that mid-level artist that had just started to get enough traction to finally be out on the road and solely 100% into the music industry, it affected them the most because they weren't touring anymore.
Right.
So we had to keep their names relevant. So actually the pandemic ended up being crazy busy for us because we were doing everything that we could to come up with, what are you into? What's your story? How can we share that with a wider audience besides going, hey, you have a new single out, let's talk about it.
Right, because you're now in this storm of people that we're all told you go make an album and produce it and put it on Spotify, so you have to make them seem unique and marketable in a way that people haven't seen before, where we're all trying to be marketable at the same time.
And we all know in the music industry you cannot have enough content ever.
No.
So when you put a bunch of people at home
We're a
for
podcast
a year and a half and they go, great, we have nothing to do. Let's make videos. Let's do this.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, who's going to market those? If we're not announcing them, on tour at a specific show, we're doing it through People Magazine or Today Show or whatever you're doing. So that was interesting because it was like every artist that we had said, well, we don't have that, but we have all of this. And you just had to make it work.
Yeah, you're just in that thin air and you're like, well, we used to have that show. Oh, well, that's gone. So you're losing space in a more competitive space, and then you need more content than ever. So you were extremely busy.
It was crazy. It was great, though, because you don't get your creative spark sitting in an office by yourself.
Right.
That's just never how it's going to happen for anyone. I wish that it did. We would probably all make a lot more money than we do if it happened when we were sitting at our desk working. But for example, with me, my favorite thing to do is to sit on the back patio and listen to my artist demos or go for a hike and just think about things. Well, man, you had all the time in the world to think about that. And I'm glad because we needed it to come up with extra creative angles for all of the footage.
Yeah, that's intense. I can't handle that. I mean, me and Joe all the time with even our socials, I couldn't imagine trying to, if you're an artist trying to show your unique story, it'd be insanely difficult in that. Joe,
especially like you said, mid-level artists who might not have the capital to get the content fully produced and developed and marketed to the extent of those AAA acts.
And you need the blunt people around you who will say, don't release this.
Yeah.
That's important too.
Did you have to shelve a couple of projects?
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming, to wait until things chilled out a little bit.
Yes. Thankfully, we were fortunate in the fact that we did have to turn away a decent amount of work and be like, we're only a team of this many people, and we don't want to be pitching the same types of artists with a limited number of press people. Because what was difficult with the pandemic was that these journalists weren't making they weren't reaching the same kind of numbers because companies didn't have the advertising to spend.
Yeah.
So people were losing their journalists left and right. So you were like, great, here's all this content, but all of these press outlets have freelancers that have been let go or furloughed or paused for their foreseeable future. So you're working with a smaller window with twice as much content going, we have to make something work. So if you have 4 pop country acts you don't want to be pitching them to the same thing.
Right.
So we try to keep a really diverse, small roster of like 15 to 20 people at a time.
Yeah.
Which, when we average that out with our team of 4 girls, we kind of all oversee 5 or 6. And don't ever want to take more than that.
Wow.
Because, again, you can't be creative sitting in an office.
So you only have a team of 5 people?
4.
4 people?
4. Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's insane. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that...
And right now, 2. But 2 are on maternity leave. So that's been fun.
That's amazing. And how many artists did you say you guys have?
Between 15 to 20.
15 to 20?
At any given
Wow.
time, yeah.
That's several full-time jobs. Like,
It's really nice because that sounds like so many, but as we all know, it's not like all 15 acts go, oh, I'm releasing an album next Friday. Good luck. Like, that's not the case, fortunately. And a lot of times we'll be able to say, hey, either we have several artists releasing on this day, or we know several friends that have artists releasing on this day. Like, let's hold, because you don't want a new country act to release the same day that the biggest country act in town, drops an album.
And then have all this competition.
That. Right.
Unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, really not thankfully, Joe and I have to do our own PR. So if you want to follow our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Biztape, and email thebiztapepodcast@gmail.com. And then we have Avery with us. So I thought, let's talk about one of the worst PR nightmares of all time, which is Fyre Fest, which if you haven't seen it, there's 2 documentaries about it. It's arguably the worst festival to happen in the last 20 years, I would say. If you guys have no idea what it is, basically it was a festival in 2017 and they tried to put it together very fast. And this guy named Billy McFarland tried to put it together and basically defrauded a bunch of investors and made no money. And these patrons were paying thousands upon thousands of dollars to get the meme of that cheese sandwich that we were talking about earlier and basically have nowhere to stay in a foreign country. So it's still going on because this man defrauded so many people in millions of dollars, specifically $36 million, that they're trying to claw back this money. And here's the update on it. So trustee Gregory Messer and his legal team have clawed back $1.3 million from artists, models, private jet companies, and other sources paid with money McFarland, the creator I was talking about, took from investors for the failed event. And according to the petition, Messer has asked the court for $1 million in compensation for those services. So basically what that means is that Messer, who is one of the trustees, got $1.3 million from all these random places that gave guarantees, models, artists, all that kind of stuff. And he said, that took so much of our effort that I want $1 million for myself and our team because that's how much work we put into it. And then all 300 parties have to split up $300,000. Compared to the $36 million that they're supposed to be owed by this festival.
Yeah. It
gets worse. Isn't that even better? Messer would also like to only pay 10 of the creditors back, who owe a combined $7.7 million of that $36 million, because I think they're more pressing to him. One of them is actually Paradigm Talent Agency for keeping in the music business stuff. And that basically means, and I love this, the 10 creditors would be receiving back 4 pennies for every dollar they spent to have them split up $300,000 accordingly.
So great investment.
It's called an ROI, Joe, return on investment. And then they said almost all the money was clawed back from companies and individuals that McFarland, who's in prison in Ohio for 6 years, has paid to stage the event. Messer also was able to claw back $341,000 paid to models, including Bella Hadid, Emily Ratajkowski, Hailey Bieber, and $539,000 from music artists slated to perform, along with $512,000 from transport outlets, credit card companies, and high interest lenders. Which you can see why he wants that $1 million, because that's a lot of people to beg back for this money and guarantees and stuff he gave for all these services. And he's basically trying to pay them all back. And a lot of them going to talent agencies, especially like a Paradigm, a UTA, and a CAA, which are arguably probably the biggest 3 talent agencies other than WME. But my question that I asked on Instagram, do we think the Fyre brand is completely dead?
I mean, the brand is huge.
Okay, this is where I'm going with this. You were right up my alley. I asked the Instagram followers, which I got a mixed response. I said, would you go to Firefest 2 if they had Firefest 2, which again follows on Instagram if you want to be part of that poll. I got a 9% who would be down to go to Firefest 2.
Sounds about right.
Which is right. But it's weird because we've seen all this like merch from Firefest blow up.
Oh,
Because
I saw
people-
huge bands buying
Yeah.
their merch because they thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I was about to say, on like things not related to the festival, maybe.
Right.
Obviously, as we've seen with merch and things, but when they say all press is good press, that's false.
Yeah.
One. And this is like the perfect example of that. I would personally never attend a Fyre festival.
Right. But
After all of this.
you would maybe argue that like in that way of maybe merch or they did license 2 documentaries, which one's on Netflix and one's on Hulu for it. So that had some monetary
Right.
value. So I'm wondering, here's where my theory's coming in. Like we had, what's the other most notable festival I can think about that went down in shambles was Woodstock 1999. The place, if you don't know, the place was on fire. Limp Bizkit apparently caused a giant riot. And people are like, wow, Woodstock Summer Love is completely over.
Out of all the bands, Limp Bizkit was
This is a timely reference. And so I was saying they thought that brand was completely dead by that point, that they had killed it. But then they were trying to bring back Woodstock 50 and basically just ignore it. So that's why my question is maybe they could bring it back. I saw that Ja Rule, who if you followed it at all, which Joe knows, was very involved with the festival for some reason. I don't know why Ja Rule. I guess that's what he does in his career now. But like he was really involved and he was acquitted of having any wrongdoing. So maybe Ja Rule could come back.
I mean, maybe. I think Jaw was more of like what Hailey Bieber and them were. It was like an influencer of the deal. I do think he had more to do with the festival than what he is legally saying
Right.
he might have had.
I have no idea. That's the thing.
Because he was in a lot of that
Well, he
behind
was
the
hanging
scenes
out
footage.
with the co-creator Billy McFarlane a lot, and he was like, "My man, Billy," you know. And I was like, "Oh God, this is terrible footage to have later." But also, it's Ja Rule, and I don't know like what Ja's like doing career-wise. You know what I mean? I'm surprised they could even get this much money back.
I was about to say I'm a bit shocked by that too, because once you pay those things out, I mean, same thing for I hand you $100 and you spend it, and I come back to you and say, hey, I want $100 back. Well, it's gone.
Right,
sucker.
exactly.
Like,
well, the weird part is, which you would probably find very weird, is that he was getting a lot of these music acts money back because it was guarantees to play, and then they refused to show up.
Right.
But then contractually they have to play.
Right.
But technically they were like, "There's no way in hell you're getting me on that island." Like that was the most interesting part about it, is that that's why they were able to go to a Paradigm and be like, "You owe me money for this," which I was shocked about. So I guess nobody on Instagram, nobody at the table is with me on that Firefest coming back, but I'm fine with that. But
the new shirt. My life is a shit show like Fyre.
I'm telling you,
Like,
the merch rights are worth stuff. I know that for sure. It's like we could have merch rights for Firefest, but maybe not anything else. But I've seen a bunch of
that's
people
about
that
it.
were like ironic. This is where it spurred from. A lot of people were like ironically like, I would go to a Firefest. And I was like, would you? 9% of our fans would. No shame to y'all. But
trapped on an island, man. I paid $20,000 to get on an island out there.
be trapped. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. That just sounds the
Well,
worst.
the footage was insane. Like the first day, right, when they all went to the bar, and then they're like, "Okay, time to go to the festival," and then they're like, "Where's the festival?"
Well, they compared it to a refugee zone, literally. That's how bad it was. Again, if you have no idea what we're kind of talking about here, other than the description I gave y'all, there's 2 documentaries. One's on Hulu and one's on Netflix. And I can't remember which one it is. One of them has the PR company that's involved with it, which was Jerry Media, was the producer. Netflix has that version.
Yeah.
And
Jerry Media runs the Instagram account Fuck Jerry.
Yeah.
Which has got caught stealing content from other creators in the past.
And so that's another thing, is they got associated with it, and in a PR company they decided, we're going to spin this documentary, and then Hulu's going to have theirs that doesn't have us with it. But the Netflix and the Hulu documentary, if you watch them back to back, have completely different ramifications based on like what their involvement was. So if there's one way to spin it, that's the way to spin it.
That is the way to spin it, for sure.
Avery, how would you
spin
spin this?
I was about to say, that's not a spin I would like to give expertise on. I will say that damage control PR is the hardest beast to conquer.
Right.
In the PR space, that something of that caliber.
Well, people just specialize in that if you're good at it, right?
Oh,
Based
right.
on the space.
Absolutely. There are crisis PR firms that sound like gray hair and margaritas is all they need because no one wants to handle just crisis PR.
Have you read the book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed?
No.
At all? It's by, I can't remember his name. His name's John something, and he's like a big TED Talk guy that he went on, and he talks about how he basically follows what it's like to be digitally shamed now, and how he basically compares it to like what, public shaming back in like the medieval ages was, where you're like throwing tomatoes at people, right? And like you're in the town square and you're all joining in on this one person.
Get your tomatoes done with, it'll pass.
Yeah. Well, he talked about how there's these businesses that when you get publicly shamed, you can go to get off the first page of Google, right? Because as you know, only like 90% of people go past the first, or 90% of people do not go past the first page of Google. So if you're able to get off of that, then your job search history is going to be a lot better.
Right.
And they were just talking about how like this one person had to go and do it, and it took them like 2 years.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I believe it. It's crazy to just see how like even when you're searching press of just like what you're looking for when you're handling something of that caliber and going, okay, I need to look back on this. Our job is obviously to look multiple pages back because you'll find even more, obviously. But the fact that a lot of things pop up on that first page and they take years to go away on a certain event, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Just the sheer amount of content and reposting and blogging and all that stuff.
One tweet, one comment to just spark it all
Circulate.
over again.
Yeah. Yeah, he talked about too that lady who sent a really bad joke on the plane, right? And I think she was a PR person, if I remember correctly, but she tweeted to like 200 followers, and then she landed and she didn't have her job anymore because like it blew up.
Right. It was something about a
within 8
bomb
hours.
threat with the plane, and like as a joke, right? Was that what I'm
No,
talking about?
it was.
That's a different
it was
lady.
like
That's the lady.
It
That's
was
the
a
time we live in. Never mind. That's the different lady.
It was a poorly executed racial joke that I think came across. She was trying to be sarcastic, and it came across very wrong. And it's just that fast. Which, have you ever had to deal with that level like of stuff against like an artist or?
Yes. I'm legally not allowed to talk about it.
That's fine.
But yes, and it's not fun. I mean, obviously our whole goal was to make sure we kept as much press from covering it as possible, but there's nothing I can do when something's tweeted out.
Right.
Or that's a social team that they get to conquer that beast and figuring out how to hide comments and things like that. But what we have to do in that situation is make sure, okay, there are a lot of outlets that'll say, we have to cover this. This is news. There's no shushing this, no matter how and what you offer me. So then it's going, okay, let's pivot to how we want this interview to be set up. We want to make sure it's not attacking in any way and it's giving them a chance to speak their piece. And that's a completely different ballgame. When we had to do this about a year ago with one of our acts, it was an awful accusation. And there was so much that I'm trying to think of what all I'm allowed to say on it, but there was so much that they had been accused of, and there was so much evidence of the opposite. And it started online, and it just was attacking, and finally one press outlet picked up the phone and called us, and we were like, there it is, and get ready. And I remember all four of us went to my boss's house and had to sit in the living room for hours just being on the phone with people because we knew as soon as that one outlet hit, everyone would start from there.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just making sure you got to them first to control that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I mean,
Sorry if you have PTSD.
You're great.
From
yeah,
No.
I was like,
No.
that
You're
like I am like in like I have like empathy stress in that story. I was like I couldn't even imagine.
I could feel the sweat.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It's not fun especially when you have like family members that don't understand what you do, and 99.9% of the time it's so positive and things like that don't happen. And then you have something drastic happen and you go, oh God, this is what we're here for. Like, this is the stuff we have to control. And that's a difficult place to be in.
And that must be difficult because I feel like that's the one that people are like, oh yeah, you guys do something with that. Like they don't remember like the like cool stuff that you put together or like they're on a show like, oh, I did that. No. They only remember that one part. Right. Oh man.
Well, they say it takes 9 positives to make up for 1 negative.
Oh.
Wow.
That's apparently the stat.
That's the stat. I did not know that.
I learned that in tennis, like in college. My family used to say that. It takes 9 positive comments to make up for that 1 negative. And I've like held on to that because I'm like, it applies in everything.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, speaking of weird PR, Instagram is no longer a photo sharing app. According to, I'm just saying that. That's my own opinion. No, according to Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, stated that there would be many changes coming to Instagram in the coming months due to stiff competition with, you guessed it, TikTok and YouTube. So we're going to play his full statement here so you guys can get a reference of what Instagram is thinking with these shifts.
Hey everyone. I thought it would be good to start sharing more about what we're currently working on internally at Instagram, just to give you a sense of what's coming before it comes. Right now, we are trying to build new experiences primarily in 4 areas. The first is creators, and I've talked a lot about creators and trying to help them make a living. And this has to do with the shift in power from institutions to individuals across industries. The second is video. Video is driving an immense amount of growth online for all the major platforms right now. And it's one that I think we need to lean into more. And I'm going to actually talk about that more in a minute. The third is shopping. Now, the pandemic shifted or accelerated the shift of commerce from offline to online by a number of years, and we're trying to lean into that trend. And the fourth is messaging. How people connect with their close friends has changed a lot over the last 5 years or so, and has moved primarily to messaging away from feed and stories products. But today I actually want to talk a bit more about video. And I want to start by saying we're no longer a photo sharing app or a square photo sharing app. The number one reason people say that they use Instagram in research is to be entertained. So people are looking to us for that. So actually this past week in our internal all hands, I shared a lot about what we're trying to do to lean into that trend, into entertainment and into video. Because let's be honest, there's some really serious competition right now. TikTok is huge, YouTube is even bigger, and there's lots of other upstarts as well. And so if people are looking to Instagram to be entertained, there's stiff competition and there's more to do, then we have to embrace that. And that means change. So what you're gonna see over the next couple months really is us start to experiment more in the space of what we call recommendations. So showing you things in feed that you may not be following yet. We just started testing an early version of this last week. This week there's a new version that's coming out with topics where you can say which topics you want to see more of or less of. But we're also going to be experimenting with how do we embrace video more broadly. Full screen, immersive, entertaining, mobile first video. And so you'll see us do a number of things or experiment with a number of things in this space over the coming months. Now, we have an idea of where we're going to end up in a half a year or a year's time, but I'm sure things are going to change many times between now and then. This isn't something that we can just do overnight. So you'll see us iterate and try and be very public about what we're doing and why with videos like this one. Anyway, hopefully you'll enjoy it. Peace. Hey everyone.
Just keeps going. Yeah. That's the rest of the podcast. We'll just repeat it.
So that was Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram. And I mean, there's a couple things I guess we should kind of break down. Is first, Instagram is definitely taking the position of we are in competition now. Whereas before it was like, maybe we should just ignore TikTok's existence. And then secondly, what they seem to want to change is going to shift how the platform will innately work in its entirety, which is a huge change because what he specifically said was recommendations, like YouTube's recommendation system, I'm assuming, more like TikTok's, where they're trying to get that For You page, essentially. And we've seen Instagram do this in the past where it basically snatched up Snapchat's UI and kind of rolled with that. Eventually, I would even say overtaking Snapchat insanely fast. It took one bad update for Snapchat to lose. I think it was like 30. Yeah, it was like 30% of its user base, myself included, honestly, because they just now it's like their For You page is like it's almost like looking and like you go to a grocery store and you just see magazine
like
covers.
A tabloid.
Yeah, it's just tabloid stuff.
Yeah, it is
now,
weird.
Which apparently gets a lot of clicks for them, but it's just something interesting. So with this shift, do you guys think this is a smart move on Instagram's part? And even though Instagram was still founded on imagery, do you think it is going to be able to transfer into a video platform?
So it's weird how they've taken this position of like, it seemed to me that like your Snapchat example, that it was additive, that they added stories into Instagram, and it seemed like we still had Instagram, and now there's stories on top of it. I guess you lost that eighth of the screen, but like, whatever. So I think it's interesting in this that they're kind of directly saying we are going to have like a subtractive effect in the way of like things are going to change on a whole when it comes to how we're going to implement this technology to be in competition with TikTok. I know they said kind of YouTube, but like Reels, come on, you know what I mean? Is like such a weird space. And then there's the shorts on YouTube, which is not even, I don't even put that in competition with any of that.
Well, Instagram has long form content too now with IGTV.
But so does TikTok, because TikTok just did the 3-minute thing. So it's
that's true. But Instagram, I think you can upload unlimited.
Much longer.
Yeah, you can do the IGTV, which is even different. So I find it interesting that it seems that they are leaving this niche that I felt like they were really on top of, which was imagery, like just still photos and stuff, especially for younger people. And they're kind of like taking that dive and accepting kind of the losses of the change of their system to try in an effort to get to that TikTok side. And I don't think they can do it right now unless I see some crazy algorithmic, technology that we have no idea exists yet or something. But I think that I think it's very crazy to think about them kind of leaving like, oh, we are the photo people. We're like the people that like, this is your face out to the world, especially for younger people who have completely abandoned Facebook. I think it's interesting to see them be like, we're going to get off of this hill and take a risk and leave and just, we'll hope we can beat TikTok with our new system. I mean, I know from obviously a PR side is like Instagram is insanely important. And so my question is really, I don't know where you would find something like Instagram and like the posts that you find on Instagram versus TikTok, because I feel like they're very different.
They definitely are very different. And the same, I feel like TikTok's goal has been to eventually outbeat Instagram, which was kind of what happened with Instagram to Facebook. And hell, what happened from Facebook to MySpace? Like, before that. So each platform has just done a completely different thing. And then they try to go, oh, well, this is working for them. Let's do the same thing. And that's obviously difficult to like handle, because I agree. I see Instagram as a imagery for the most part. I mean, even with switching not solely, but for the most part to video, you even think about like when someone looks at a feed, you see those creative feeds on Instagram all the time. If it's all videos, you're constantly focusing on where the still is.
Right.
And I feel like TikTok just does that so much better. And I can't believe I'll say that because I hate TikTok. I hate another platform to have to go, I need content here too.
Yeah, right. I feel bad.
And it's like one of those things where it's specified to TikTok. I feel like there's a different way that you communicate through TikTok than you communicate on Instagram. So I guess maybe to your blessing, if they're similar, you could maybe kind of use technology or like kind of content that's kind of similar, as opposed to this hits an Instagram market versus like a TikTok market. Because I don't know, like in older stuff, I feel like if you have a Facebook page, your Facebook page is like the outward to the world, and it's like you're kind of like formal. It's like what your grandma would want to see.
Basically.
Right. Yeah, it feels like LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn has gone down to Facebook and Facebook has gone down to LinkedIn, and they're meeting in the middle. And that's what that is. Instagram's like your cool flex posts, like, oh, here's a cool photo of me at a
really
concert.
Good in this bathing suit.
That it's like, I don't want my like second cousin or like my old swim coach to see these photos, but like, here we are. This is what Instagram's for. And then TikTok is like this amazing app that somehow has just like everything and anything on it, and it can have very serious content, very not serious, very like presentable, very like jokey, almost just like to the level that it feels like, is this even a joke anymore? But I find it very strange, like, in the end, that Instagram's going to try to challenge that, and I hope that it doesn't end. My question is, will something rise to the occasion of Instagram losing that, propensity of being a photo sharing app?
think that TikTok will just get bigger.
I think TikTok
people
will get
would
bigger.
leave. If it really depends on the UI, user interface for those.
You're a photographer, so like obviously with
and that's the thing, is the photo community is kind of afraid because we don't have a platform now to like really share and showcase. I mean, we could on Reddit, I guess, but Reddit, you have that
anonymity
to it, and it's not as like personable. And I think with Instagram, it did a really good job of like showcasing your portfolio, because you could do video and photo.
Well, I would just imagine it's like
and discoverability for photographers.
If you're an artist and you're making content, I feel like it's difficult right now unless you literally make a slideshow for TikTok. But even then, that would be kind of strange, right? Like in my mind. So I feel like it would be weird if Instagram leaves the space and creates more of a focus on video, and then photo becomes secondary. I wonder where that market of photos will be, because I just don't believe that, like, even though we're getting older and the younger kids are coming up, I don't believe like photography in its entire essence will leave.
Oh no, I don't think so either.
So like that's my thing, that's what I'm wondering is, will something else rise to the occasion, or will that would be the craziest thing. TikTok comes in and was like, we are now a photo sharing app. We focus like they just go in the opposite direction.
Yeah. I think Instagram has definitely seen a drop, and a huge drop of user like interaction, especially during the pandemic. Like nobody was doing anything much of Instagrammable except sitting home alone.
Yeah, I want to ask Avery this specifically. What do you think, especially for you're trying to guide these artists for PR and stuff, the difference between if you're trying to help them with TikTok and then like an Instagram?
So I'm really thankful in the fact that I don't have to come up with that content.
Okay, good.
I don't have to advise it. It gets handed to me and I go, oh, okay, what do I want to do with this?
Right.
But as far as like coming up with a strategy of it, we obviously work with a digital team to try and come up with what these concepts are, but we rely heavily on video directors and things like that to go, this is your expertise. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job.
Okay.
But what I do hope happens with Instagram switching more to a video format is that selfishly for artists, TikTok has helped more artists than ever because music actually counts towards streaming and everything else. Like
you're right. Yeah.
That has actually helped push it, which has been a big driving force. That's how we've seen some artists completely blow up, is through their TikTok followings that happened almost overnight. So if Instagram is going to go toward a more video format, I hope that's the same thing.
I think
it could bring a lot of traction back to them artist-wise, if that's the case.
Yeah, and didn't you see that they were trying to do something close to the TikTok creator program in terms of like for the video side of Instagram?
Adam loosely talked about, he didn't name any specific numbers or anything like that, but he loosely talked about putting more effort into creators and paying creators, which I think people have been screaming for since Instagram's existence, because people have been creating specifically for Instagram for years. And a lot of people, the economy of Instagram, it's like you get your sponsor posts and businesses who come to you rather than Instagram paying you directly. I think it's we're in an interesting spot now with how payment systems like this work, because if we look at TikTok in comparison to YouTube doesn't pay great. But it pays more than TikTok, and TikTok pays hardly anything. And then I have a feeling Instagram is going to be on the same level of TikTok, where it's like going to be paying hardly anything. But maybe people are making longer form content if it's able to sustain itself. I think, Colin, we were talking a little bit off mic about it today, but I think that this is a really important catalyst for Instagram. Where if they make the wrong move here, it could potentially be the death of Instagram. If it's truly that bad, Now, if they kind of coexist with each other, or they test it out, they figure out people hate it, which every person I've talked to about Reels hates it because it's just repurposed.
More work to do.
It's more work to do, and it's just repurposed TikToks. So why do we even have it if we just have TikTok already, right? And then I really don't like the recommendations stuff, at least for the Reels I've seen. I think that kind of feedback for Instagram is going to be detrimental for them to listen and to adapt to it. Because if they don't, and they're set on, we're going to change it purely now, then I think they could.
All right, so next topic. We have operational learnings from the UK Events Research Program. Wasn't that fun to say?
Yeah.
That sounds like really intense, but it's actually really cool. So basically, the UK, unlike the United States, has been doing a lot of consumer testing for how COVID shows affect attendance and how people respond to shows, which is, the data of it is insane. Like, there's just nothing close to it. And so from, marketing shows especially, it's been interesting to see how people respond to, you have to go take a test. So the UK has a couple of big things that came out of their phase 1 of this giant program. So first, the program reported that the UK market just doesn't, and this is probably true of the United States, I would assume, just doesn't have enough to test and do data and contact tracing to a significant number of events. And there was no streamlined system to receive health and concert ticket information efficiently because the records are so messy.
Right.
Could you imagine being like, you send your medical record and you get your, ticket from Live Nation and we'll be all good to go. Everyone think you're insane. You know what I mean? I could not imagine that. And then there's difficulty in having to get a test for many customers, and a lot of people obviously refusing to do it and take their money elsewhere. So we're seeing them go to other entertainment ventures that don't have this requirement, such as like a movie theater or other, kind of live shows that don't have this requirement at all. And in one case, in one of these pilots that got canceled in the end because too many people dropped, potential customers spent an average of 3 minutes and 15 seconds reading the terms of entry, specifically supervising testing requirements, but only 1.7% of the users bought a ticket after reading the requirements, what you'd have to do. And then usually the conversion rate without testing requirements is 18%. So that means that there's a 17% drop if you have to get a test for these shows because they don't want to do it. And then lastly, there's no shows all over the place for this. They did a show at Wembley Stadium, and basically people would rather just miss and just give up the money than try to get a test together last minute. And they kind of came out of this like, we don't really have any other solutions except for, which you guys may have seen before, doing those little boxes of groups, which are kind of awkward if you've ever been to one of those, because you're just kind of like, you're like a little toddler in a playpen. It's like, good luck. You're stuck in there for the rest of the night.
I'm going to come back in a second. I'm going to come out that hard in a second.
And then you either have, which is one I never heard of, but they do controlled and regimented entry and exit. So they do it super hardcore, but basically this makes the event way longer because you have to be like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't leave until 15 minutes after this section, and then the next section is like 30, and the next section is like 45. So they were talking about not music related, but soccer games, especially if you watch any sports live, and this is not going to go well. They're just going to lose. Everyone just starts leaving. And they said you would literally have to physically stop people and tell them you have to stay where you are. And so
telling people what to do goes over really well.
Right. Telling people in a live event, especially
as live security personnel know very well.
I just couldn't. Right. Exactly. And so I'm like stunned because obviously we're at this point where it's like, we have the vaccine. Why does this matter? Well, pandemics are predicted to happen more in our lifetimes and stuff like that. So this information is very important in case we, don't want a total shutdown of the music industry again and that, which I don't know about y'all. I don't really want that, but it's interesting from that perspective of trying to get fans to be into it and be like, oh, it's safe, but they're not. They're just going to go, no, we're not doing it.
Do we know how, what the vaccine percentage of the population the UK is right now?
I'll look it up.
Because I'm pretty sure they're still a little bit behind us because we bought all the vaccines basically.
Yeah.
And now it's being distributed, I think. But
I will say on the pod setup, the little square cubicles. So have either of you gone to the caverns since they started that?
No, I've never been there from that.
Okay, so in October, I believe they officially launched their first show. We did all of the PR for launching this, and then like the Jason Isbell and his band were the first show that happened. And they played 4 nights in a row. And they sold out all 4 nights, but it was probably 750 people were allowed, but it was probably 100 little pods, and you could have either 2 people or 4 people or 6 people or whatever. Well, we went, and there were 4 of us in our pod, and you would scan to order your beer or food or whatever you wanted, and within 5 minutes, they would bring it to you. It was the most incredible.
yeah, that sounds awesome.
Literally,
I want that now.
I literally looked at the CEO at the end of the night and I said, "You're screwed because you've started this during the pandemic when we've had to be careful. But if I come to a show next year and I have to go stand in line for 20 minutes and miss part of the gig and I'm not sitting in a comfy chair, not smushed up against everyone else, I'm not going to be happy. You've now set the standard.
Service.
Right.
Yeah.
You've now set the standard of this. And they did the same thing where they set up multiple entrances and exits. Well, in Pelham, Tennessee, it's a lot easier in a huge field to be like, y'all go this way and y'all go that way and it'll be fine. Obviously, in a lot of major venues, that's not the case. But the outdoor venues that have come to realize how they've had to program their things through the pandemic, I told Matt, set the standard from now on. This is how you're going to do shows. People will love it. Right. You don't have to stand in long crowds. You don't have
at least
all
VIP
of this mess.
Experiences.
It feels very VIP instead. And you can be, a football field lengths back, and it doesn't feel that way because of the way everything's set up.
Kind of reminds me of how, like, if you've ever been to a classy movie theater where they kind of give you that table service as well.
Right.
And you're like, okay, this is like $50 to go to the movies, but it's worth it. You could definitely have that with VIP experience.
Being pampered. That's what you want to feel all the time.
Exactly. Also, it's 85% of the adult population has the first dose, and it says 33 million have the second, and then the first population was 44.8. So it's probably closer to 60% of them have the vaccine.
Honestly, doing better than us.
Well, I mean, you can kind of see they have a smaller population and everything, but also they clearly have more concern than a lot of the U.S. government, especially with these programs that they're trying to really like narrow down. Like this is how it's going to work. I would love that to be the norm, obviously. But definitely from the live side, the tickets would have to be more expensive, which is fine because if you have someone who's a big enough artist, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
People will buy the tickets, and especially if you throw in you're pampered, you get a nice chair and all that kind of stuff. But like you're saying,
do I get a massage table?
Right.
Ooh, we could set up a booth, like a little area for that.
The logistics of it, sadly, don't work for every venue. And like you said, it works for that venue, but a lot of them brought up is that like monitored, controlled in and out doesn't work for a lot of venues. So this is interesting from like a venue design standpoint. Could we see in the future this idea of like, we need to have the ability to do this with venues and have them be able to withstand, like if there's another pandemic, like we could put up the boxes again and we could have entry and exit and it would be future proofed, or outdoor venues maybe would expand even more. I know a lot more people who are more germophobic now. So being outside would be, a breeze and a lovely thing compared to being in the indoor, in their opinion, hellscape.
I mean, Bonnaroo gets hot, man. Like, not this
You're
year,
a strong
I guess.
man. I've never done Bonnaroo. One, I'm not camping. I'm not.
I did the camping. I did I woke up in that tent and it was me and my friend Will, and we, you're out until like 3 a.m. the night before because the shows don't end until like 5 a.m. And so like,
I know my streets. That's not one of them.
And like we got back to our camp. I wake up. I literally feel like a piece of bacon because like it's just direct sunlight through the tent, like just baking us. And honestly, like I love living in Nashville now because it's like I can go see the shows of each artist. And I know a lot of people are like, well, it's cheaper to go to a festival. It is, but a lot of the times the artist shows are better because like you have the artist teams are behind the shows.
And you're not factoring pain and suffering.
Exactly. Air conditioning, you can grab a beer, you can leave early if you want, you know, and then you get to sleep in your own bed at night, which is the best
priority.
But for what you were saying, Colin, of like, are venues going to include this? I think I'm leaning towards no.
I think it's weird because from like a branding perspective, it's weird to see like what artists decide to take this stand and still have done what, for instance, like we're talking about the boxes, because they're trying to be still COVID conscious because it aligns with their branding. And it's interesting to see the people who have done the exact opposite. Not, especially when it was like way too early. I was like, I'm a little concerned what's going on here. But I think that in the end, it seems like what we're seeing here is the consumers just like, no, man, we're not dealing with
Avery,
this.
what do you think about the venue thing?
I don't think that they will completely pivot. I think a lot of outdoor locations will adapt, but as for the most part, I think our country will be back to 100% shows before too long at normal. I mean, we're already at normal capacity now, but just as far as like what standards they set, I don't think we'll have this tight restrictions for too long.
Yeah, because promoters want to sell as many seats as possible.
So they're trying to make up from that year.
I was about to say, when you're in the hole and you're doing everything to dig out, you're not going to give people more homework.
Also, I feel like
that's a good. I'm going to write that down.
I also feel like it would be insanely hard to go up to, you know, an artist and be like, "We're doing this. The money will be tighter," and they're like, "No."
They're like, "We've done that. It's okay.
We've done that. It's cool." And then, like, obviously, then you have to have that badge on you, especially now with America being like, open the doors wide open, of being like, you guys are still the people doing this, like you specifically, and so it gets associated with who you are as an artist too. Where, you know, and usually it doesn't necessarily matter like where you play venue wise, as long as it's not like some super, you know, you're not playing like a rally or something weird, like but I think it's interesting to see some of these people who are like on the fence about the COVID stuff and are like, we're gonna take a step back and seeing it, how they're affecting their brand, because the consumers are just not about it. And I honestly, it's going to be very interesting to see if we're future proofing it and if this will even go into, I would say, like artist mindset in the future of being like, well, now that we have these issues of health and stuff like that, thinking about a show from more of the capacity of being like, this will affect who I am as a brand and all that stuff. This isn't just, you know, sit in the corner, get your guitar out and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely, and I also want to put a little tagline. The UK is very different from the United States, but they're sadly the only one that I can find that has information like this. I wish the United States would just throw some money down and go, you go to each venue and see like consumer wise what we're thinking, because that information would be insane. Can you imagine how much people would pay at the wazoo like for that? I need Polestar to just go in and go like, okay, we went through like 800 venues and we just kept asking questions, and then promoters would pay at the wazoo for that. Can you imagine? I would love that.
Well, and that's the thing. I think promoters here are much different than promoters in various, like, internationally.
Right.
You know? I think there's more legal repercussions in the UK for promoters and venues than there are in
Well,
the
a lot of
US.
promoters, and we didn't talk about this on the show, but they're actually suing the UK government for some of the standards.
So they're not
that they
happy
put in.
about it.
Oh, no, they're not.
obviously.
And the UK
So-
government has been like, we're doing the reports, it's coming through, but they like collectively bargain or suing the UK government over some of this stuff.
And that's why I don't think we're going to future proof it. And if this happens again, I think the industry will be like, what happened?
I think the thing is that people are more prepared now than ever, and they don't have to future proof if they have a mindset in play.
Okay.
So kind of your planning crisis management of going, here's what we're going to do if this happens again.
Yeah.
But that means we don't have to execute it right now.
Right. That would make sense. It's like we have it in our playbook.
Right.
So, yeah, that's great.
That's interesting. I wonder, do you know of any playbooks in play, I guess, of that?
I know, like, with some of our artists that are on tour that have now gotten their tour buses back and are on the road, like, they've set up how they're doing everything with their camp as far as like everyone's vaccinated. If that's not what you want, personally, that's totally fine. You're not fired, but you're not going.
Yeah.
Like, until it's safe to do so.
We just can't deal
But
with
as
it.
far as like organizations or companies or whatever that have a playbook of what they want to go to, so Solid, we had to make a crisis management plan to set up things like when the pandemic happened or when the tornado happened or when the bombing in Nashville happened to make sure that you're reacting in a certain amount of time. But we haven't engaged it yet. So that's the only playbook that I can say I personally know of at the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Joe, yeah, let's...
Time for our favorite part of the show, where we surprise you by saying, what artist are you listening to right now?
Left my phone
This is
over
people's
there for
favorite
now.
part of the show.
So now I'm on the fence. Now I'm also on the fence because I left my phone over on the side of the room. So now I have to like come into my mind and be like, what am I actually listening to? I was listening to like, oh God, what was it?
It's gonna be dad rock
I was
again.
listening to Tracy Lawrence the other day again, which I don't know.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah, you know who Tracy Lawrence is.
Yes.
Tracy Lawrence is an old school country guy, but he has this song that I think is hilarious, which is the Time Marches On song. Because it has the funniest line in all country. I was working at Claire Global in the production team, and we would like we'd blare this song. And it's only for one line in the song because we thought it was hilarious. It was basically like, sister calls herself a sexy grandma. And we thought that was the funniest thing in the world because it was like so relatable. It's like all these people, the whole song's about like moving time and stuff. And like the sister just is like, I'm a sexy grandma now. And it's so funny because like we just be blaring it. And then all of a sudden 15 different people go, sexy grandma. And like everyone who's there, like artists would be like, what is going on?
What is happening?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to plug. I can't believe I'm plugging it.
Do it.
But I've recently become obsessed with Carter Faith.
Okay.
And she's a young country act. And I 100% did the creepy, showed up at a show, gave her a business card thing. I've never done it in all of my
Nice.
time. I am now representing her. And this last week, I got her new project. And it comes out next month. And I literally have not spent a minute on Spotify or Apple Music or anything because I keep replaying this damn SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, did you just like sneak up to the stage and were like,
No, I didn't.
that was the way you were making it sound, like you just
Yeah.
like snuck in and like,
You're
the
just
tip-
like, here you go.
Here you go.
I remember laughing. I was sitting at the show at City Winery with my boyfriend, and I had heard her music just on Apple Music and Spotify and stuff before, but I hadn't ever heard her live or anything. And I looked at my boyfriend midway through the show, and I said, is she as good as I think she is? It was the first show back from the pandemic. Or did I really just need live music like this bad? Like, you can be honest.
You need
with
the
me.
reality check.
Right. And he was like, every song has a hook. And I sat there and was like, don't be this person, eh? Don't be this person, eh? And about 10 minutes later, she came and sat down with a couple of her teammates or people on her team at the table right next to us. And I said, yep, I'm doing it. And I walked up to her and I was like, I just wanted to introduce myself. Super excited about the show. Would love to just like grab coffee sometime. And I'm 100% positive she like blew it off and never thought anything of it. But then we followed each other on Instagram and like a week later went to coffee, and like 3 hours later I had missed another meeting because we just like took so long at coffee. And she was
That's what
planning
you
for the
want.
project. Right. She's now like one of my best friends, and this was just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with her in like the best way.
Wow. That's
Amazing.
amazing. I mean, that's how you do it. You like really enjoy it. You have an actual passion for enjoying it. And you go, you are so cool. I want to work with you.
Right.
And you just come right up. That's
trifecta.
admirable as hell. Like,
I always joke with her though. I'm like, you can't tell people that you got a publicist this way. Like, and we just laugh about it. So
Awesome. I've been listening. I kind of went back old school with my music taste a little bit, and old school being
That's usually
like high
me.
school.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I've been listening a lot to Neon Indian and his album Vega Intel Night School, which is super hipster, such a hipster
I was
name.
about to say,
Yeah,
it's fitting.
love it so much. And then there's this artist I can't stop listening called Binky.
Okay.
Binky?
And Binky. And like Colin, I've been listening in the car
I've
with
been
him
there,
all the
but
time.
I didn't realize that was the name until I kept reading it as bikini, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's not what it is.
But he's amazing because like he has like that 90s, early 2000s like punk kind of like. Have you ever listened to Block Party?
Yes.
Yeah, like it's like Block Party.
Okay,
kind of.
send me all of the things.
Awesome. Yeah, because like every song, it's like the same thing where it's like it's hooky. It's like it's there. It's hitting the vein at the right time, and I was just blown away when I heard his stuff. But yeah, well, Avery, thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us.
I'm
This
so
was
glad
amazing.
I did. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we got to have you on again. I say that a lot, but like honestly, the people we've been having on have been amazing. So
Good. This stuff is so fun when you're doing it with friends all the time.
I mean,
Absolutely.
we're pretty stupid, so we need that intelligent balance.
You will be getting that from me though. So, but thank you both.